Hello and welcome back to the, oh my goodness, 8th episode, I don't know, of the Pink Floyd album saga. I'm done. I'm over counting. This is album number 8. Or 7. I don't know. You'll see it in the title. But anyway, without further ado, we are going to talk about, in this one, as you read the title, probably the most infamous Pink Floyd album of all time, The Wall. So, I've got a lot I want to talk about here. So, I have The Wall fairly in the middle. I had Momentary Lapse of Reason as 8, as you saw. I'm sorry, 7. And this would be episode 9 or something. I don't know. Okay, anyway. This is an interesting one because this album I actually had higher on the list, and I lowered it a little bit. So let's talk about it. Obviously, I think that this is Pink Floyd's easily second most recognizable album ever. It came out in 1979, was the last album of the 70s. This is where we start to see Roger Waters really has some more control. Okay, he's writing most of the songs, kind of like Animals. Not all of them, but, most of them. Concept album, obviously. Written based on an experience that happened actually during the tour from Animals, where Roger starts to have this feeling of being more disconnected from the audience, almost like he's building a wall around himself. And so, of course, his story takes the shape of Pink, the, old jaded rock star, who goes through all this stuff. He gets a wall, he's got the wall, it's building higher, he starts taking drugs, he's having affairs, he's starting to lose his mind. All of it culminates in the wall being, he has to go before a judge, and he's being put out on display, and they say, tear down the wall. Phenomenal story. And I think that that's the reason why I do have this album so high up on the list. And one of my favorite things about it is, if you want to talk about concept album, this is like the benchmark that all concept albums should be rated off of, in my opinion. It's a double album, obviously. Best-selling double album of all time. Pink Floyd's second best-selling album. I think 30-something million copies, only second to Dark Side. This one, though, I don't think is as liked by the Dark Side. I think the general public does really like this album. Granted, it features some of their best songs ever. But generally, it seems hardcore Pink Floyd fans are not a huge fan of this. And I think there's a couple reasons. You have most of it being Roger Waters, which, that's that. Most of it being Roger. You have, I think, another reason why, and I agree with this to a point, there is kind of a lot of filler on this album. Not a ton, but I think a lot. I do think that every track on this album has a point, which we're going to talk about. Are there some that are a little weird? Yeah, Stop is a good example. We don't need that. But does it tell an amazing story? Yes. Listening to it, does every song flow into one another like No Tomorrow? Yes. You want to talk about Dark Side having good flow? This is the best flow. If you don't listen to this album on a vinyl record player, you're not going to hear it. It has to be listened to on vinyl. Very wonderful cover. As you can see, it is The Wall. This is an earlier version. Some of the later versions had Pink Floyd The Wall written on here. Very wonderful back as well. And you open it up, and you've got some wonderful film scenes in there. So, interesting fact, too, is it says here, produced by David Gilmour, words and music by Roger Waters, except where you can see here, I'm trying to point it out, right here. These are technically all of the songs where it wasn't just Waters. So it is a lot of Waters, admittedly. Another interesting fact is that the track listing that you will see on the sleeves is actually different because the original track listing is based off of the film adaptation, which was not what became the album. So, interesting trivia there. But let's talk about the songs. So, first song on the album, In the Flesh, starts out very soft, like real soft music, and then it just jumps straight in, and you've got the beautiful intro to The Wall, In the Flesh. And, of course, the first line, so you thought you might like to go to the show. Great song. That transforms or flows into The Thin Ice, which is pretty much Rogers doing a lot of singing. Waters. That flows into Another Brick in the Wall Part 1, which is a very, you know, the rhythm to Another Brick in the Wall. It is a very slow, just little bit of bass, little bit of rhythm, little bit of lyrics that are a little different from the song. My favorite one is A Snapshot in the Family album, so that's a great one. Now, before you get to Another Brick in the Wall Part 2, you have The Happiest Days of Our Lives, which is one of my favorite songs off of The Wall. I cannot listen to Another Brick in the Wall without listening to The Happiest Days of Our Lives first. It doesn't work. You can't. And there are some radio stations that play both, which is nice because some will just play part 2. You can't. You need The Happiest Days of Our Lives. Between the lyrics, you get sort of the helicopter sound, and then it jumps right into the riff for Another Brick in the Wall. And then you've got Roger singing. You've got the amazing bass and drum line. That is one of my favorite things about it. Of course, that flows into probably Pink Floyd's best known song ever, Another Brick in the Wall Part 2. I don't think that song needs any explanation. It's a 10 out of 10 song whether you like it or not. And on we go to the last song on side 1, which would be Mother. Mother is a song that a lot of people don't seem to really like. I love it. It's a kind of a longer song for the album. I mean, 5 minutes. Introduces the mother character, of course. You know, mother, do you think they're gonna break my balls? Gotta say it like, you know, gotta put the emphasis on my balls, because admittedly, listen to the song, the emphasis is on there, but great song nonetheless. Flip that over, you start side 2 with Goodbye Blue Sky, which is a beautiful song. Look, mommy, there's an airplane up in the sky. And that goes into a riff that a lot of people say was an influence for Metallica's Fade to Black. And admittedly, if you listen to Goodbye Blue Sky, it sounds really similar. The tone, everything. But the locals, the lyrics in that song are amazing as well. The rhythm, everything, great song. That transforms, whatever, I'm tired. It flows into Empty Spaces, which is another one of my favorite songs on the album, and it is a beautiful song. It's got the backwards messages, which we'll talk about in a bit. You listen to the middle and it sounds like some gibberish. It's actually because at the time a lot of people were putting secret messages into their songs, so Pink Floyd took it as a joke. And Roger recorded a message and put it backwards in the song. So if you play the record backwards, you actually just hear Roger saying, "Congratulations, you have found the secret message. Please send your answers to Old Pink, care of the Funny Farm, Chalmont," or something like that. And then he's interrupted by, I don't know if it's Bob Ezrin or what, saying, "Roger, Carolyn's on the phone." So, sounds like a bunch of gibberish. It's actually literally him saying, "Congrats, you found the secret message." So, yeah. That goes into Young Lost, which is another one of my favorite songs on the album. Empty Spaces and Young Lost both. Those are another two where you gotta listen to them together. Young Lost, Gilmore on vocals, beautiful chorus, beautiful guitar work. It's awesome. Then that flows into One of My Turns. Now, of course, this song opens with the groupie in the hotel room with Pink saying, "Oh my gosh, look at this bathtub, look at this," you hear her talking. He trashes the room in a fit of rage, and that immediately goes into Don't Leave Me Now, which, as the title implies, pretty much just a continuation of One of My Turns. It's, you know, oh, don't leave, blah, 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 this, that, and the other, whatever. Then you have Another Brick in the Wall Part 3, which is essentially the closing out of Another Brick in the Wall. And of course, this is just a small snapshot of the song, you know, Roger saying, "I don't need no drugs to calm me." This is where, okay, Pink's actually starting to lose his mind here. This is like, you know, now we're seeing the issues with the character. That flows into Goodbye Cruel World, which is the last song on side 2 and the last song on the first record, which is basically Roger saying, you know, "Goodbye, I'm leaving today, goodbye, goodbye, goodbye," whatever. Then cuts off, end of side 2. Go into side 3, record 2, and you start with Hey You, which is a beautiful song. One of my favorites on the album. One of the biggest on the album, too. The rumor has it that, and granted, I don't know if this is exactly true, I have heard a rumor that this was started because I want to say it was Gilmore found out that his wife was cheating on him, And as soon as he found that out, he sat down to write a song and wrote this. But it's a beautiful song. Lyrics, everything. This is another 10 out of 10 song. And it's absolutely just, spine tingling how good this song is. This is the point where Pink is like, okay, I've made some mistakes. I need to try to, get back in contact with people. I need to try to not, I've seen what happens. I have to try to get through the wall. But at this point now he's trapped. He can't get out. That's where you get the lyrics like, hey, you out there in the cold, getting lonely, getting old. Can you feel me? Hey, you sitting naked by the phone, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. Amazing. That goes immediately into, is there anybody out there? Essentially just an acoustic number. And answer to the question, the next track, Nobody Home. Again, side 3 does have a lot of filler, admittedly. I will say that. Even though it all flows, it is kind of filler. I'm not going to go through the whole story of The Wall. If you want to read it, you can go to Wikipedia and read it. It's easy. That goes into the song Vera, which, again, kind of a filler one. Again, not much to say. Vera's kind of meh. That goes into Bring the Boys Back Home. This song doesn't really seem all that crazy. It ends with, of course, Is There Anybody Out There? But it is the precursor to the top song on the album. I think nobody will argue otherwise on that. The climax of the album, which is the end of side 3, and that is, of course, the epic, amazing, Comfortably Numb. Features, in my opinion, the best guitar solo out of any song ever written. I would argue that it is one of the best songs ever written. One of the reasons why people love it so much is because it's part of the album and it fits in, but you can listen to it. I mean, you can't really listen to Vera or Stop or something not listening to the album, but Comfortably Numb, yes, you can. At this point, basically Comfortably Numb, pretty much this is, Pink is unresponsive to the doctors. He's not waking up. They give him drugs so he can play, and that's where you get Comfortably Numb from. The whole, hello, is there anybody in there? Not if you can hear me. Whatever. Okay, relax. I need some information, just the facts. Tell me where it hurts. This will ease your pain. It'll put you back on your feet again. Stand up, whatever, you might feel a little sick, but this is, amazing. I mean, it is just a 10 out of 10. I don't know how to explain it any other way. Immediately, you go on to side 4, which is The Show Must Go On. Pretty much kind of just a continuation of Comfortably Numb in a way, but not really. There's not much to say. Then you have In the Flesh, which, yes, there are 2 songs called In the Flesh, but very different because this In the Flesh is In the Flesh. The first In the Flesh is In the Flesh with a question mark, so very different In the Flesh. But this In the Flesh, this is now Pink performing at the show the song In the Flesh. So it's hard to explain, but now the song is being played by Pink at his show. Of course, at this point, he's starting to have hallucinations that he's a dictator, and that is where you get the song Run Like Hell, which is another wonderful song on the album. And with the way it's recorded, it sounds live. If you showed someone this song, they would think it's a live recording. It's not. It's just made to sound like that. Of course, this is where you have the whole, you better run, I'm now a fascist dictator, and I think my crowd is Nazis. Yeah, it's a whole thing. You can read about it. I'm not going to go into it here. That goes into Waiting for the Worms. And this is pretty much sort of where the album starts to come to a close. This ends very abruptly with the Stop. And of course, Stop is the third to last track on the album. And it's basically Pink saying, I want to go home, take this uniform off. I am putting myself on because I have to know, what have I done? And that goes into one of my other favorite songs on the album, The Trial, which is one of the best outros to an album I think has ever been recorded. And essentially, if you don't know what The Trial is, it is Roger Waters playing different characters, and essentially he is okay, so the song starts with the judge. Okay, greetings everyone, we're in the courtroom today, we're gonna see what happened, and we're gonna watch and see what Pink has done to all of these people. So Waters does all kinds of different like characters. He does the judge, he does the prosecutor, he does the schoolmaster comes in, Pink's mother makes an appearance in there, Pink's wife, you know, you little shit, you're in it, that. And then, of course, you have the chorus with the choir, you know, crazy, toys in the attic, he's crazy, crazy, truly gone fishing, I am crazy. And it is such a cool ending. It ends with the judge basically saying, like, since you've revealed your fears, you know, this is what's happened. You know, you've put this through so many people. You've done this to people. I can't believe that this has all happened. And it ends with this big, loud climax of the judge saying, I sentence you to tear down the wall. And it's the chorus and a bunch of people in the background saying, tear down the wall, tear down the wall. And it repeats like 14, 15 times, just tear down the wall. And it ends with a loud explosion. You know, you hear like debris falling. And on the vinyl, it immediately flows into Outside the Wall, the last track, which is this really soft, really delicate song that's basically Roger reading a poem that basically says, like, you know, this, you know, all through this, all through that, you know, the people you've hurt, the people who love you, you know, they're out to help you, but they can't help you, you know, this, that. The last line in the song is, and when they've given you their all, some stagger and fall. After all, it's not easy banging your heart against some mad bugger's wall. And essentially, all that's saying is, if someone builds a wall around themselves, you aren't going to really get through to them, unfortunately. And that is where the album ends. That's it. But it's even cooler than that. If you listen or very carefully to the last few seconds of the song, the very last few seconds of that song with the music continuing, you'll hear a very faint voice, and it comes from Rick Wright, a very faint voice saying, isn't this where... And then it stops. The album cuts off. The music's done. All you hear is, isn't this where... Done. Album's done. And you might think, oh, that's weird. But if you go back to the beginning and listen to In the Flesh, the very beginning, I talk about it has that right before the big, loud explosion of sound, you get that sort of soft music. If you listen very closely in the beginning few seconds of the song, right as the music starts, right as it starts, you will hear Rick Wright's voice saying, we came in. So in other words, the sentence, isn't this where we came in, is being played. On the last song of the album, you hear, isn't this where, cut, come into the song, we came in. And it's the same, that same soft song from Outside the Wall is In the Flesh. It continues, and that's why around the 15, 18 second mark, you hear the bang and the explosion of sound with the album starting, because it's a loop. The album doesn't really end. It's just a continuous loop, which adds to the complexity of it. So that's it. Those are all the tracks. And why do I love this album so much? Simple. Because it's a freaking trip to listen to. Is this Pink Floyd's best work of music? Debatable. I don't quite think so. No, granted, Comfortably Numb, Hey You Run Like Hell, Another Brick in the Wall. Yes. Top songs for sure. Is it the best, though? Debatable. There's definitely some stronger stuff on the albums that are going to come up on the list. Is it iconic? Yeah, definitely. So, I know this one seems to be very high on some people's list, very low on some people's list. I used to have it higher. I had to lower it a little. As a child, I thought this was the best album to ever exist. I didn't think another album could be this good. Then I started listening to the other Pink Floyd albums, and I was like, you know what? You know, maybe this is only okay. This is still a phenomenal album. I mean, any band could release this and it would be their top, but, you know, Pink Floyd did, and it didn't quite be the top. So, I think that's going to be it. I thank you all for watching. I'd love to hear your opinions on this one below. Beautiful album, wonderful, so many Easter eggs in it. Great to listen to. If you've got an hour and a half, throw this on and just take a listen. It is wonderful. And even with some of the filler songs, I never found myself getting bored. I'm just like, yup, this is where we are in the story. So that's going to be it. Thank you all for watching this episode, and I will see you in the next one. And yeah, The Wall. Best concept album ever. Bye-bye.